Hello. Hey, yeah, yeah. Hi, everyone. Okay, hang on. Boom. I think I just let Avi join, hopefully. Yay! Hi.
We did it. Hey.
Woohoo! I was so nervous. I've never done this before, so I was afraid that I was totally going to ruin it. But here
You
we are.
nailed it. You did not ruin it.
Okay. There we go. Wow, we already got some people on here. That was so fast.
We got some people. I'm very excited.
Songwriting.
It's happening.
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll, maybe wait a few more minutes to let some people come in.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I would love to see where everyone's from. That's always very, very exciting. We're already up to 700 people, which is amazing. And just so you all know, this is the songwriting free class from A Kaplan Academy. And we are very, very excited to teach it.
Yes.
From Japan, let's see. New Jersey, nice, nice.
Carolina.
Portugal,
India.
Tennessee, very nice. Brazil, Puerto Rico, Tennessee, Pensacola, Florida, Australia, India, Brazil, Canada, Nebraska. All right, we are here from all over the world.
Everywhere.
Amazing. This is very, very exciting.
Yeah, that is awesome.
I say we get started. I know that we don't have much time, so might as well jump right into it. But before we start, I would like to introduce Quinn. Quinn is absolutely amazing. She is an alumni of A Kaplan Academy. She was in like the first songwriting class that there ever was at A Kaplan Academy. And now she's doing amazing things. She's in the band Truesdale. She's a writer. She's a performer. She's a musician. She's a composer. She's an arranger. She's amazing. So honored to be doing this with her. And yeah, actually.
Thank
Quinn,
you, Avi.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm so stoked to be doing this as well. We did this in person.
Go ahead.
Sorry. We did this in person like a while ago when we were doing camp.
Mm-hmm.
And then last year I didn't do it with you. So I'm excited to be doing this again. It's been a while.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I say the first thing that we get into is, why we started writing songs, why we love to write songs, and then we can kind of jump in on how to do it.
Totally. You want to start us off?
Sure, yeah.
Go for it.
So I started writing songs when I was 14. And I just needed a place an outlet to get out my creativity. Because when I was younger, all I was doing was I was singing other people's music and learning parts and doing things that had been presented to me as opposed to me creating these things. And I really wanted to create, so I just started creating on my own, and it just evolved from there. I did it from there all the way up until now, and I'm doing the most writing that I've ever done in my life now. I write as often as I can, and yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do. It's probably my favorite part of music now. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I love that. I started writing like here and there towards the end of high school, but I really didn't start writing until I got into college. And I think that was, I'm just gonna move this notification. I feel like there was a lot of fear for me around songwriting, and there was a lot of self-doubt around songwriting, and it took a while for me to get comfortable with myself as a writer. But I was doing like classical piano for the most part when I was younger, and choir and a cappella and theater, and I was not creating the music. I was interpreting the music for so long of my life, which I still love doing. But it wasn't until I got to college where I really felt like I got to the point where there were things that I needed to say. And that's when I started writing them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I still deal with like fear and self-doubt. And I
Yeah.
think my band Truesdale, it's been really helpful to be writing with them as well. I think I've learned so much from them. Like writing with other people is such a helpful process. But yeah, I think I still run into those things, which is why I love teaching a class like this, because I feel like I run into a lot of the same issues that people might be asking questions about. Like I still deal with them.
Absolutely.
And so to like talk about the process that helps me is easy, because I'm still going through it constantly, as everyone is. But
yeah, absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely. And fear and self-doubt is something that, is not just for songwriting, it's for life in general. So
yeah,
if you can get past it in songwriting, then you're doing a good thing for yourself in general.
totally.
So absolutely. I love all the things that you said, and I think it'll resonate with everyone that's here trying to learn about songwriting. So let's just get started. And I guess the question to ask is, where do we start? There are a million different ways that you can start a song. You can start with chords, you can start with melody, you can start with lyrics, you can start with the title, you can start with a tempo, a groove, many, many different things. I personally start with chords, then I do melody, then I do lyrics. But Quinn, how do you usually do it?
I typically do the same. The only time when I don't is usually when I am feeling like if I don't say what I need to say right now, it's going to like vomit out of me. Like there's something so important that I have to say that maybe then the lyrics come first. Or I think this is something that's super helpful too. Like one of my favorite songs that I've written, I was just walking and I didn't have an instrument and I was walking around a lot of people. So I was like too self-conscious to like be singing into a voice memo, which I also think is so important. But I was just writing the lyrics down and I didn't have a melody for it. They were just words. And then I sat down and I wrote to those, and I ended up writing something completely different from what I normally would, because I wasn't going to my normal, like sitting down at the piano, going to the same chord that I usually sit down and play,
Absolutely.
But I typically do the same thing. It's,
Yeah,
I think it's easy when you have an instrument.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that those are very, very important exercises when you're getting stuck. And that's something that we'll get into next. But, all of those things, like I said, you can start with chords, you can start with melody, you can start with lyrics, title, grooves, time signature, tempo. Do you want to talk about some of the other things that we were just talking about last night?
Yeah.
We're talking about just writing with like 2 chords on a guitar or something like that.
Yes, like I think that those are all so good. I think even if you can get like a voice memo and like give yourself like a beat on your like on the table if you don't have anything, and then play that, like loop that back. That's something that can be different to write with. But yeah, something that my songwriting teacher in college told me when I was having a lot of writer's block was to sit down, if there's an instrument that you typically use when you're writing. So I'm always at the piano when I'm writing, to only write with 2 fingers. Don't sit, because it's so easy for us to sit down and go to the same chords that we know that we're comfortable with. But if you have only 2 fingers, you end up creating like a harmonic structure that can go in a million different directions. You just have like a bass line and one note on the top. And I did that, and I like totally had the craziest chord progression to the song that I wrote when I did it. Or doing an instrument that you're not really familiar with. Maybe if you have a guitar, I don't play guitar, but if you can do it in like, is it open D tuning, where it's like a lot easier to like when you play, the chords sound good typically more often.
Totally.
Something like that, like an instrument that you're not familiar with too, I think would be great. What were some other ones? I'm afraid that if I click out of this, I'm gonna like.
I'll do it. Let's see. Let's see. What else did you say?
I mean, starting with the title, which I think is great.
You said writing to a groove, writing with an instrument you're not familiar with, using 2 fingers, writing from a title, writing a song that could go behind your favorite scene in a movie or favorite book.
Yes. Okay, that's one that I
and
love.
don't take your pen off the paper.
Yes. Oh yeah. Okay. So writing, I think too, like if you have a favorite scene of a movie and you like mute it, because typically there's like music behind it already,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
mute it and
Hmm.
you watch it and you try to write a song that would go
Yeah,
behind that scene. Something
yeah,
that can be like emotional, it can be exciting, happy, it can be funny, like whatever. I
yeah,
think that's super inspiring. And then uh, writing, like object writing or stream of consciousness, where you don't take pen off the paper, because then I think that also takes away a little bit of the ego of it, where you don't have these
yeah,
expectations of what you're going to write. You're just like, well, the only purpose, the destination is for me to fill the page. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to write a good song. Then you end
yeah,
up
yeah.
finding cool things from that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's really important to think about as well. Is like you're not going to write the best song that you've ever written every single time that you sit down to write, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that taking a little bit of the pressure off and just letting it come out and letting it be what it's supposed to be, I think is extremely important.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that another thing that is really, really important is finding inspiration. I know that sometimes people have a lot of trouble finding inspiration. And actually, before we jump into that, I want to let you all know the questions that you're writing down or that you're typing down. Remember those, because we're going to have questions at the end and we will answer as many questions as possible.
Yeah.
I want to get through the basics and then we can just dive right in. We can have a conversation about it. Um, so, yeah, so talk about a little bit of the inspiration that you like, how you get inspiration to write a song.
Yeah. Well, I feel like a lot earlier on in like my songwriting career, that truly hasn't been that long. You know, it's been years, but not many of them. I feel like I waited for inspiration to hit me and I wouldn't write unless it did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think then that it became a very rare occurrence where I would sit down and write a song because I was
Yeah,
waiting
yeah,
for that inspiration to happen. But I think I can also find inspiration from thinking about the people around me that I
mm-hmm.
love and thinking about things that they might be going through. Writing a
Mm-hmm.
song like dedicated to them, like I'm singing to them or putting myself in someone else's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I also think reading and
Yeah,
like just taking in other things that other people are creating, it will always inspire. Like reading something from someone that you respect as a writer, or just like a story that you love, like things like
yeah,
that, I think can be really inspiring if you don't feel immediately inspired by like your day in your moment,
yeah, yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
um yeah, what about you?
Um, I agree with you. I think that, now that I'm sitting down to write and I'm making it my purpose to write, many more songs are being written.
Yeah.
Um, I think that listening to music definitely inspires me. I'll try to listen to all different types of music.
Yeah.
Um, it's really, really important for me to branch out from the things that I'm writing. Not only does it help me get new ideas, but it helps me not regurgitate things that people are doing in the realm that I'm writing in.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so I definitely do that. Um, I definitely take time to go out and just be alone, be in nature, get inspired by the things that are around me. The world is so unbelievably beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, and it's hard not to be inspired when you go out and you see so many beautiful things in front of you.
Yeah.
So that's definitely another thing. Um, and I just think that, um, you know, it's, it's something that you have to make a priority, you know? And I think that you're not always going to be inspired when you write. And I think that sometimes when you go in to write, you're not inspired, but once you get started, you do get inspired. So
Absolutely.
I think that that's something to remember, is that this is a muscle and you have to work it out often in order for it to get stronger.
Hmm.
And, don't get in your own way when you're trying to do it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. I think that's the whole thing with like the expectation of every time you write, it has to be something that you're happy
Yeah,
with, I think is so debilitating. And
absolutely.
it makes it really difficult to finish songs more than anything. And I know that might be something that you and Tahila talked about last time too. I think it's a very classic thing of like, be a song finisher. Like, it does not have to
Yes.
be a good song, but finish the song. And I
Mhm.
think when we have the expectation that it's going to be the most, it's going to be the best song yet every time, it's going to get better and better, then it's
Yeah.
nearly impossible then to
Yeah.
finish it and to continue writing and to
Yeah,
like
it
let
really
go of
is.
that ego. That's, oh, another one that I didn't mention, but like to get over writer's block, or maybe I did, is to write as if you're pitching to another
No,
artist
yeah,
or
yeah. You
songwriter.
didn't get into that yet.
Yeah, like someone that you love, someone whose music you love, write a song for them. And so you're kind of taking yourself and like your ego out of it, of like, I don't have to like this song, but this is going to be for someone else, you
Hmm.
know? And then maybe it's a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
easier to finish it.
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Um, I love all of that stuff.
yeah,
And I think that inspiration goes straight into um, writer's block because I think that that is one of the things we were like, I'm not inspired. I can't think of anything. Like nothing feels good. And I think that, writer's block, a lot of that is just getting in your own way. So I think that, getting into talking about that and ways to get out of it is super, super important. Um, w- and honestly, the things that we spoke about in terms of how to start a song,
oh my
I think
gosh.
it really, really helps with writer's block, like
Yeah,
writing just the melody or writing just the lyrics or just starting with the chords or, using two fingers on a piano or whatever it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
All of those things help with writer's block,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that really the biggest thing that is writer's block is you are blocking yourself, you
Yeah.
know. And I think that people stop themselves before it can turn into something good, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There have been many, many times where I have written a song, finished it, been like, this is a terrible song. I'm never going to listen to this again. That might have been a waste of time. And then I listen back to it and I'm like, wait, I can hear something in this. This
Yeah.
is actually pretty good. And then it goes somewhere
Yeah.
that I did not imagine it to. So I think that not getting in your own way is extremely important
Yeah.
for writing a song and being vulnerable. Like we said before, you're not going to write the best song every single time you sit down to write. And at the end of the day, what is your definition of the best song? Is it to sell the most music or is it to help people? And I think that's something that's really, really important to get into. But
Mm.
anyways, with writing block, do you have some things that you like to do when you're feeling that way or when you can't get anything out?
Yeah, I mean, if I need to give it space, I will. But in terms of like trying to finish a song, I feel like even going over, this is like kind of getting into like song form type things, but trying to remember perhaps what the purpose of your, like the sections of the song might be, of like
Mhm.
what, and and just in general, I think this happens with my band, with Truesdale, all the time. We do this when we're sitting and we're writing and we're, if we get stuck on something, we will sit back, or if things are just starting to get like a little bit muddy, we'll just
Mhm.
be like, what are we trying to say? And
Yeah.
just sitting back, gaining perspective, not trying to write the line, but just saying like, what is the purpose of this song right now? What are we
Absolutely.
actually trying to say as a whole?
Mhm.
And then to like talk about that a little bit. And if you're by yourself,
Mhm.
to talk about that with yourself, to think on it,
Absolutely.
to maybe
Yeah,
do a
even
free
like write
write.
out the synopsis of it.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
free writing, stream of consciousness is super helpful in terms of like if you really get stuck in the middle of it, um, to sit down and just write a bunch of stuff, and then go back and
Mhm.
like circle the things that stand out to you. You can piece some things together, say them in a different way. I think that is super helpful, because I think we end up often, when we're just talking and we're saying things, we end up saying things that are really meaningful
Yeah.
and inspiring. And so I
Yeah.
think if you can just talk about it for a minute, like I have a list on my phone of, if like walking around, if I just like hear someone say something that I
Mhm.
think is beautiful, I just write it
Yeah, yeah.
down. And like we
Mhm.
used that, like one thing, somebody said something years ago that I was like, that was like so beautiful. And they were just like acknowledging something. And I wrote
Mhm.
it down and we used it as the first line of one of our songs that we released in like our last EP. And it was just like a
Absolutely.
random thing, so I think like just talking through things is super helpful.
Yeah.
Paraphrasing the song in different ways.
Absolutely. I think you made a lot of good points. I think that the first point that I love is that you save these little nuggets, you know what I mean? All these little
Yeah.
things that you hear, you know, whether it's a melody or it's a line or it's just an idea, you save those things. So I recommend for all of you who are trying to be songwriters or trying to write a song, whenever you have something that comes in your mind that applies to a song, save it, you know, write it down or record it or whatever it is, so you don't lose that. And at the end of the day, you'll have so many ideas to pull from when you are having inspiration problems.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the other thing that I loved was that, oh no, now I lost it. Well, that's okay. Um, but I did really love that. And I think that that is extremely, extremely important.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. What was I going to say? Don't get in your own way. We already spoke about that.
Yeah.
Being hypercritical. I know that we already spoke about being hypercritical and getting in your own way, but I think that it's really important as humans in general and not just in songwriting to not be hypercritical. You're always going to be your own worst critic,
Yeah.
always. So I think it's important to really, really give yourself time to not listen to it as a critic, to not look at your song as a critic, but to listen to it as a listener. Because when
Mm-hmm.
you listen to music that you love, you're not listening to like, oh man, that line, no,
Yeah.
I don't like that line. Or, oh man, that person used that word twice in the
Yeah.
same phrase or whatever, you know
Yes.
what I mean? Or you know, or even when it comes to melodies or harmonies or tuning or groove or whatever it is, you're always going to be your own worst critic for your own music. So I think it's really important to get perspective and, you know, to take some time away from it. That really helps me.
Yeah.
I am my own worst critic. Um, Very, very badly. And it helps me a lot to take time away from it. But it also helps me to let other people listen to it, that I really trust, that I
Yeah.
know care about me, that I respect musically, um, and and to let them listen to it as a listener and just as an enjoyer of music, and to get their honest opinion on it. You know, I think that that's really, really important because we are definitely our own worst critic. Um, what are ways that you get around that, Quinn?
Yeah. I mean, I I just think that's so huge, everything that you just said. And I think that it's a really difficult habit to get into, but that's, I do the same thing. I mean, I try, even as I'm writing, when I start to get a little bit too critical, I'll try to like, it's more of like a muscle that I'm still trying to strengthen, but to take myself out of it as I'm writing and say, like, if this person, this artist that I love, were to sing this line in a song and I'm like driving and I'm just listening to it, would I think twice about it in like a negative way? Would I say, like, oh, I didn't like
Yes.
the way that? And usually the answer is no. And it is because we're so critical of ourselves. But if you can separate it in that moment, and I try to do it as often as possible in the writing process, like while I'm sitting down,
Hmm.
writing, of like, if this person did this, would it bother me? No. Okay. And
Yeah,
then keep going. I think, yeah, that's
exactly.
a huge, huge thing that I do. And I also think, um, in terms of like being super critical of yourself and like thinking that there are bad ideas or like there are bad songs that are being written. I mean, similar to what you said, like you write something and you feel like, oh, maybe that might have been a waste of time. And then listening back and realizing perhaps it wasn't. I think that, especially in like co writing situations, I was so scared getting into like writing situations with other people, even people like my bandmates that I'm so comfortable with. And I think at the beginning I was really scared and I just did not think that I was like worthy of being a part of the process. And I was so
Yeah.
afraid of saying a bad idea, like a single bad idea. I was so afraid that I just would like sit there and think and be like, I can't open my mouth unless it's like the perfect line that everyone's going to say yes to.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I just like started seeing the patterns of the people around me that I respect so much as songwriters, and they just let things come out and
Hmm.
say whatever is coming to their mind in that
Yeah.
moment. And I realized that this bad idea that I think is so terrible, if I say it, we might not use that, but someone might pick one thing from that idea and say, okay, I don't love that whole thing, but that thing that you said about this, that would be perfect for this. And that might end up being like the line that is like the most
Absolutely.
memorable, the most important. And if you don't say the ideas that are coming to you, those things won't happen. And so like everything leads to the end result. And I think that's so important. And I think it's easy to be a little less self-critical when you think like, I need to move forward with this because I don't know where this is going to lead, and it could lead to like the best thing I have written. Who knows?
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. I think that's so important. And I think that talking about collaboration is extremely important too, because I think that that's not only a way to help yourself be less critical, but it's just a way to get inspiration. It's a way to get out of writer's block. It's a way to just have creativity flowing. You know, sometimes it doesn't always flow through you. Sometimes I'm sitting down and writing a song and I can't get the line for an hour. And sometimes when I write down and when I sit down and write a song, it all comes out in an hour, the entire song, you know. And I think that, you know, I've done a lot of co-writing recently, and it's been so helpful and it's been so fun, and I've learned so much about writing. I think anytime that you sit down to write with someone, you'll learn something. So I think that's something I highly recommend. Find people that you trust, that you're comfortable with, that you don't feel awkward throwing out lines. And even if you do feel awkward throwing out lines, force yourself to do it, you know. Make sure that you're doing it, because that's something that could change the course of the song and the course of your life at the end of it, you know? And I think that's something to learn for life in general, is don't leave things left unsaid. You know?
I'm huge. I think you can just, so easily like shift that to just like living life in general, and like how fear can stop us from doing so many things.
Absolutely.
And we're so afraid of making mistakes, but like just realizing that those, what we think are mistakes, might end up leading to like the most amazing thing later on, and like being okay with that and just letting yourself, and just like saying the ideas, even if you think they're stupid, like right at the beginning, just like getting them out and like starting that way so you can get used to it and you get more comfortable. It's so much easier. And like nobody cares. If you say something that like you don't end up using, like no one cares, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that that's super important. And while you were speaking, I actually remember the other thing that you touched on that I really loved. And you were talking about just people talking about things or just saying things. And then it might be super simple, but it could be very poignant, you know what I mean? Or just very beautiful thing to say, you know. And when that made me want to talk about simplicity, because I don't think that you need to write like the most beautiful poetic lyrics to touch people's souls. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's just something super simple. Like when you listen to a Bill Withers song, like he's not writing anything that is like extremely poetic. He's just writing like everyday truths that people can really feel and understand. He's saying it in a strong way, but it's in a simple way. And he's putting lyrics and melody and production to it that just make you feel a certain way. I mean, Lean on Me is like one of the simplest songs, you know. Ain't No Sunshine. It's like, they are so simple, but they're so beautiful. So I think it's really important to remember the simplicity of our songwriting, and don't always try to make it the most poetic thing. Now, if that's your thing and you want every single line to be poetry, well then cool, that's your thing. But I think that, especially when you're first getting started, don't feel like, oh man, my lyrics are not like that. And also, that's another thing, is that do not compare yourself to other people. You know, Marissa, who is a huge part of Acapella Academy, always says this: comparison is the thief of joy. And that is huge advice for your life. Don't compare your songs or your writing or your melodies or your performances or your tracks or anything to the artists that you love, because you're different than them and you don't want to be them. You want to be you, because you are the only you know. And that is the way to stand out, is to be you, because there's nobody else like you. So be your individual, write your truths, do the absolute best you can, but don't get in your own way, you know. So
I love that. I think that that's something that's really beautiful about being a songwriter, being an artist. Like just like a lot of music in general, like careers that you can do. I feel like, you know, if you're doing musical theater, which is amazing, but there are like a bunch of people auditioning for the same part. But with songwriting, with music, like we can all exist going, I'm going this way, and like I might be similar enough to a songwriter, but they're just going just in a slightly different direction because they're not me. They didn't
Exactly.
have my upbringing. They don't have my same inspirations and, you know, fears and
Yes.
whatever. And so,
Exactly.
yeah, we will never. Oh, something that just reminded me, something that my same songwriting teacher told me, which I loved, was that no one is going to write your next song or your next
Hmm.
album. And the feeling
Yeah.
of the urgency of having like the best song yet, like no one's going to take that out of your brain and write it instead of you. And to like that like relieves a little pressure. But yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that that's super, super important to remember. Um, there was something else that I was going to say. I totally forgot, but that's all right.
It's like
That's
so
fine.
easy to get into. I could just like truly go for hours
Me
talking
as
about
well.
this.
I love it so much. I love songwriting.
Yeah.
What was I going to say though? Um, I feel like it had to do with something in terms of comparison, but I
You were
don't really
talking about
remember.
simplicity too in
Yeah.
songs.
Um, yeah. I don't. Oh, yes, I do remember now. Great, great news. Okay. Um, so what I was going to say was that your songwriting, your music is going to be an amalgamation of your inspirations and your life experiences, you
Hmm.
know? So whatever that is, just let it pour out, you know? And at the end of the day, this is what I believe. No matter how far your songs go, no matter how much money you make from it or how famous you are, if you can help someone with your music, you as a songwriter have done your job. So just remember that, even if it helps you. Songwriting is so therapeutic. If you can sit down and write a song and it helps you get through what you want to get through or what you're growing through, it is worth it. You know, so I encourage you all to write a song, be creative, don't get in your own way, and yeah,
Yeah. I love that. I feel like it's the best feeling, even if it's just a piece of a song, you haven't finished it, to like
absolutely.
have something and just
Have
like
something.
it's like magical. It's like this thing
It
that
really is.
it's not physical. It's something that like came out of your brain, like did not exist before, and
Yeah,
all of a sudden it's there. It exists. It's the
absolutely.
coolest thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really really beautiful.
Yeah.
So many times I feel like when a song really moves through me, I really obviously it filters through me, and you know I'm a part of it, but I feel like it came through me. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
it went straight through me, and it didn't come from me, but I
Yeah.
filtered it, and it is from me after it's already out there.
You were
You know,
the
I think that's
vessel.
such a beautiful thing. Exactly.
Totally.
Um, so I encourage you all to let yourself be a vessel for that creative beauty and magic. I think it's extremely important. I imagine that you all are here because you're interested in that. So don't take another second to put it off. Definitely
Hmm.
do it. Um, and I think that, you know, I think that this will probably be a good time to open it up for questions. I
Yeah.
really, really want to have a lot of time for questions. But before we do that, is there anything else that you want to impart or say to us?
I think just write as much as possible. Do it
Yeah.
every day if you can. And I think um, honesty is like so important, and
Yeah.
to be honest in what you're doing. And I think that as just like human beings, we are empathetic and like we can feel that when someone is really meaning what they're saying,
Yeah.
regardless of how simple or how poetic it
Hmm.
is. If there's honesty in it, that comes through and that speaks to people.
Yeah.
Um, but and yeah, just to not be critical and just do it as much as possible. And if you've done it and if you've sat down and you wrote one line, one verse, one whatever, like you have won. That
Hmm.
you've done what you needed to do. You know?
Absolutely. I totally agree. 100%. Awesome. All right. Well, let's get into some questions.
Yeah.
I'm sure this thing is a bit delayed, so forgive us for waiting for just a second to see some questions, but let's see them. I'm only getting like 2 chats per, like, you know what I mean? Like I can only see one at a time. So let's see if we can
Okay.
actually catch a question once they start rolling in.
Oh, so someone asked, do you have any advice for writing chords / melodies when you are new to playing an instrument? I actually think like, oh, you go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say like, I think that that's actually a really special and cool place to be in terms of writing music when you're not, when you're new to an instrument, because as much as like being, having all the information and knowing all the theory, that's amazing too. But to a certain extent, that kind of limits the ideas that you have sometimes, which is why, like I was saying, with writer's block, sometimes it's cool to do it on an instrument you're not familiar with. So I would say, I mean, you can do, if you want to like really learn the theory, there are so many different like online videos. You could like YouTube anything to find chords to certain things, learn songs that you love, learn how to play them. I think that's super helpful. But then I also would say just sit down, especially I think the piano is it's linear, it's easy to see. You can sit down at the piano and just mess around, video your hands or write down like on, you know, what notes you played, mess around with something until it sounds good. You might end up having something that someone like me who's been playing since I was really young might never write, just because I'm like, well, no, it has to be like this major thing with, and so the sharp has to be here. And, you know, you might end up writing something super cool because you're unfamiliar with it.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you as an individual is what's going to make it cool and different, you know? So I think that your lack of instrumental abilities can make your song what it's supposed to be, you know? And if you really aren't figuring anything out on your own, you know, collaborate with someone that is, that can play an instrument or can play an instrument that inspires you. I think that that is really important. You know, and I do think it's important, if you are someone that does play an instrument, to try and write a song and try and write melodies when you're not playing, because the melodies and the rhythms that you come up with will be totally different, because inherently when you're playing, it's going to affect the melodies and the rhythms that come out of your body, you know. So just something to think about. Let's do another question.
Oh, there's so many. I don't want to miss them.
It's tough.
This one's simple. It pen on paper or laptop when writing.
Ooh, for me, just because it's easier, I do it on my phone.
Yeah, phone.
Just quick and easy. I have done it with a pen and paper, but yeah, I've just done it with my phone mostly, honestly.
Yeah. I either do phone, or if I do pen on paper, I'll do it so that I can write. I used to do this. I don't do this so much anymore because I have voice memos, but I would write like solfege over the words so I would remember what the melody was that I was writing in case I'd forget it. But mostly phone.
Yeah. Someone just asked, how do you go about writing with others, and how many people is too much? I think that just get with people that you feel like you would feel comfortable writing with, that you respect musically, or that you think that you would be inspired by musically. And how many people is too much? I mean, that's tough. I know that some bands write together and some bands are huge, you know? So I think that you can try a lot of people and see if it works out. But I think that the most that I usually do is like 3, me included. I've done 4 and it has worked, and I've written songs that way. But yeah, that's what I would say. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, because I'm already in a band of 3 people, if we're collaborating, it's usually 4. But something that we always say is like, there's already a lot of cooks in the kitchen. So like, it's definitely, we have to be quite specific with like the people that we write with, just so we're comfortable and we feel like we can all come together, because already with just the 3 of us, there are 3 different minds that are going in different directions. So Yeah, I would say four for me, just because that's what I'm used to. But I say like write with anyone, any group. If there happens to be a group of 8 people and everyone is like, let's write a song, do it.
Hmm.
You never know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like, I know, I mean, this is different, but there are, and I know that the scenarios are slightly different, but if you look at a lot of like mainstream pop songs now and you look at the writing credits, there are like 10 people on those
Yeah,
songs. But I don't
yeah.
know in what, like maybe it was 3 of them wrote this part and then 3 wrote another. But I think
Hmm.
that you can, yeah, experiment with it. Write with as many people as you can and see what the limit is.
Absolutely.
You know?
So someone else asked, how do you get the imagery into the lyrics that you write? Or how does the imagery come to the lyrics that you write? I might have butchered that question, but I think that's what it was.
Yep, I saw the same one. I think that was it.
Okay, cool. For me, it just I see when I write, I see it as like a movie in my mind.
Yeah, yeah,
It really is like that. I genuinely, when I'm writing, I I can see it in my mind in terms of imagery. I
yeah,
can see it in my mind, and I write it down. You know,
yeah,
um, and I think that other than that, just making sure that it sings well, which I think that that's something that we didn't talk about, and I
yeah.
think that that's something that is extremely important.
Huge.
Is making sure that the lyrics that you choose can sound good with the melody that you're choosing as well, or the rhythms that you're choosing as
Yeah,
well. It's tough to explain how something sings well and something doesn't sing well.
yeah.
But basically, if you're able to sing it and it comes out smooth, then that sings well. But if you're
Hmm.
trying to force too many words into a rhythm or into a melody, you'll know if it doesn't sing well. It'll be too hard to do.
Yep,
So you just adjust it. So that's
totally.
definitely something to, figure out.
Yeah, that is like a really tough thing to even like explain, but I think when you hear it being sung well and you hear it not being like quite right, you just know the difference. I think something that's kind of a big part of that is the syllables on like the downbeats of things and
Yeah.
accenting perhaps the wrong part of the word on something,
Yeah.
which I think does work sometimes when it's like intentionally done in like a cool way, it works. But I think that's part of things, does it sing well? Are you saying apple instead of apple or something,
Yeah.
different
And then the
downbeats.
rhythms go into that.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. Cool.
totally.
So that's something to think about.
Yeah.
Let's see if we have any more questions. I'm sure we do.
Oh, another one with imagery as well. I was just thinking is that doing like you can do object writing and pick something somewhere in the room, like something that you see, and do a stream of consciousness, right, for like 10 minutes on this object. And it could go in any direction you want it to.
Hmm.
But I think that kind of like starts to strengthen that muscle of like using that. Um, or putting yourself, if you're talking about a scenario in your song, putting yourself in that room and like looking around. What am I seeing in the room? Like, what color is the chair? Is there something that's on the table? Is there a cup of coffee on the table? Is the window open? Like, can you feel the wind coming in? Can you see the trees
Absolutely.
outside? Like putting yourself as much as you can in the scene of like wherever you are in the song and like
100%.
describing it could be
Absolutely.
helpful.
And I mean, that's a really, really great style of writing. Actually, one of my favorite writers, Sam Beam, who is Iron and Wine, writes like that. He just simply names the things that are around him or that are going on or whatever,
Yeah.
and automatically you are transported to where he's at.
Yeah.
And I think that that is one of the most beautiful things about music is that automatically when you listen to it, when you put your headphones on or you turn it on your speakers, you are automatically in a different place.
Yes.
And that's something that I love about music and I love creating about music is that you can take people anywhere you want to take them. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Totally.
Um, is it possible to write about something you haven't experienced? Absolutely.
Oh my
I
gosh,
think
yes.
so. I think that um, I've definitely written about things that I have not experienced. And I think it's important to write about those things because I think that, at least for me, Um, I want to write about things that people are going through, or that people are excited about, or that people need to have a fire lit beneath them about. You know, it's important. You want to inspire, and at the end of the day, like, not everybody is going to be able to connect with exactly what you're going through at that time. And so it definitely leaves it open to write about something you're not going through. So I would definitely leave that open for sure.
Yeah, I think that um, something that's maybe makes it a little bit easier is to think of things in like when you're writing a song to try to make it specific as you're writing with like let's say imagery or like you know you can see exactly what's going on, specificity, but also having it be universal and
Mm-hmm.
something that anyone can connect to in some way. And so I think that if you're trying to write about something that you haven't experienced yourself, you can maybe take the example of whatever the experience is and try to work your way down to the root of the emotion that's behind that experience. And whatever that is, you have experienced in some way, you know? So if it's a breakup, but you've never had a breakup, you can work your way down to is it sadness, is it loss, is it desperation, is it fear, is it, and you know, once you can get down to those places, like you will be able to connect to that, and I think you can use that to
Yeah,
write that, and then and those feelings everyone else in the world has also felt, and so people will
absolutely.
connect to that as well.
Absolutely. Um, Someone else just asked, how do you figure out what genre the song that you wrote is in? Um,
Mm.
I think that that's a really interesting question.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I think that I hate to use the word should, but I think it's really important to figure out, you know, what your intentions are. You know, by any means, whenever you write a song, it does not have to be for you. It does not have to be in a specific genre. It depends on why you're writing it. But if
Yes.
you're writing a song for yourself, if you're trying to become an artist, I think it's really, really important to figure out what genre you want your songs to be in. Or if it's not one genre, then where does it fit? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, what are the things that make your songs, you
Hmm.
know? And I think that that's really, really important to figure out. And I think that that can also help with your songwriting as well,
Yeah.
to figure out, you know, what are my parameters, you know? Because at the end of the
Yes.
day, like, I know exactly myself as my art, myself as an artist, I know exactly what I'm trying to go for. I know
Hmm.
exactly what my parameters are, the things that inspire me, the things that I think that are too far, or the things that I think are too similar to something I've done before, you know. So I think figuring that out beforehand. But if you haven't, I think that's a good time to figure it out.
Yeah.
Is to just delve into where the song fits. At the end of the day, if it's a good song, you can put it in any genre. So
Yes.
I would say remember that.
That's, I think, going off of that, I think because I'm in this band with three very different people, we've had somewhat of a hard time saying like we are in this genre. And the
Yeah,
music that we're releasing, the music that we've released in the past, I mean, it's definitely touched on somewhat different genres. And what we say, which is similar to what you just said, is just that um, if the song is good, then like it can kind of be whatever. And we when we release songs, we've kind of decided at this point, just because all three of us have had such different um, like musical careers and inspirations, and uh, we just say we say like when we release it, we'll just let the listener decide what genre we're in.
yeah,
But we still like start to lean towards a more specific one as well, and like move forward with that. But when we're producing, when we're writing, we just decide what is going to serve the song best. And
exactly.
I think that just is, you know, similar to what you said. If it's a good song, like it can be any genre. And if you're writing something, what is going to serve the song the best? And that will help to guide you probably to something
Yeah,
more specific in terms of genre, I'd
yeah,
say.
absolutely. And I think that also the more that you write, the more that you'll figure out what your common denominator is. Things that will
Totally.
continue to come out of you, you'll be like, oh, okay, I can kind of see. And even with your band, you know what I mean? The more
Yep.
you all write, the more you're like, okay, I can kind of see what what the breadth of our writing is, and
Yeah.
it's continuing to happen for me, with the
Hmm.
songs that I wrote for my last EP compared to the songs that I'm writing now and the songs that I'm recording now, is like there are similarities, but there's evolution as well. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. I think that there will always be a through line too as a writer because it's your voice. So like that
yeah,
will always be the same.
yeah, absolutely.
What else?
Yeah, let's see. Um, Someone said, any advice for writing background vocals or instrumental arrangements for the songs?
Mm,
My advice for that would be figure out how you want it to feel. You know
hmm.
what I mean? Figure out exactly how you want it to feel, because that is going to play a huge part in what you want to do,
Yeah.
or what is right or what is wrong in that type of realm.
Hmm.
So I think figure out exactly how you want your music to sound, get examples, get inspiration, and then go from there. Once you figure out how you want it to sound, then however you do it specifically, if you're not copying something, it's going to be your own.
Yeah.
And I think that is the way to do it.
Hmm. Totally. I think we're also in like the production phase right now of our next EP and taking it in like small steps, like getting the basics first of what you think you need. So that could be like a specific instrument, like laying down what it is, getting a bass line, starting to mess around with like what you think the groove should be, just doing it in small steps and slowly layering things in, I think is really important.
Hmm.
And then I also think like not I'm I am newer to production than our other band member, and I think that when we started, I would get really stressed at the beginning of the process of like,
Hmm.
I don't know how this is sounding. Like, is
Hmm.
this going to be good? And giving it the space to like see itself through as well, whether
Yeah.
that's with like an instrumental arrangement, if it's with
Yeah.
like backing vocals, if it's, I always felt that when I would arrange songs for my college a cappella group too. Like,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
would be like, oh, this is not sounding like what I thought it would be, but you just give it the
Hmm.
space for it to sink in, and I think it ends up changing. But I think references are a huge one. I mean, Avi produced one of our songs that we released on our last EP, which was amazing, and it was such a good experience. And I think that was such a good. We did it in like, was it two or 3 days? It was really quick,
Yeah. It was very, very quick.
but we had references. It was like, how do we want this to feel?
Exactly.
And that was huge.
Yeah, you do all the prep work, and then you get into it, and you bring in people that you really love their playing,
Yeah.
or what they're inspired by. Just get examples. I think being as specific as you possibly can, with also leaving it open to becoming what it's supposed to become, is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Letting it be layered and having the patience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Let's see. Are there any more questions? I'm sure there are.
I know.
Um, let's see. It's tough. They go quick.
I know things are moving. Someone said, do you get inspiration out of other songs through lyrics or arrangements? I think it just like that totally depends on what the song is. But I do think like this is just the reason that I read that one. I was thinking about what you were saying about getting inspired by other songs, and
Mhm.
I sometimes will listen to the playlist that you have, like your listening playlist on Spotify, because
Yeah, that's
it's so
awesome.
good,
Thank
and
you.
that it inspires me if I'm trying to write.
That
Um,
makes me so
oh
happy.
my gosh, yeah, so good.
That's
I have
amazing.
that saved. Everyone should. It's so good. The songs
Yes,
are so
please
good.
save it. I
Um,
love it.
yeah, I think like it could be anything, but
Yeah.
So then if you're really trying, like, oh, I'm struggling with getting these words out in the right way, and I have this amazing like chord progression that I love.
Yeah.
And maybe going to listening to songs that you just like love the words to, and they
Absolutely.
mean so much to you, and feeling inspiration from that, or other way around.
100%. I love that. That makes me so happy you listen to that.
Yeah, so good.
I like take time to
I
share
love
and
your
listen
taste in
together.
music. It's just,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. It's very like, that's just the kind of music I want to listen to. I mean, first of all, at all times, but like if I'm like looking out at the ocean, or I'm like in a field
Yeah.
of grass and
Yeah.
flowers, and I'm feeling the wind, there's
Absolutely.
something very like grounded, and
Exactly.
it's
Oh
like
man.
very inspiring to listen to if you're
Yeah.
trying to create,
100%. Yeah, I feel like it's from the earth. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
it's from the earth.
It's
Totally.
from somewhere greater than the human that wrote it.
Yes.
You know?
100%.
That's what I love about music.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I love about music.
Yes.
Let's see. Someone said, "Do you have to have an idea of the song already in your head, or does it come naturally when you're writing?" I think both ways can work.
100%.
100%. Both ways can work.
I think like this. I think when you're writing with other people, sometimes it's really helpful to come in with like a little nugget of an idea of what you want, if you want it to like get the ball rolling right away. I think that's really helpful.
Yeah.
But then I think also when you're co-writing with people, you can just sit down and talk, and like things will come up and you can start writing from there. But yeah, I think either way,
Yeah.
it can happen however you want it to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. We're almost about to wrap up here, but are there any more questions? I don't see any more questions coming in. Do you?
Not really. Oh, which one of the five senses inspires you the most? That's really interesting.
Well, I mean, are we talking about when it comes to music or in life? Because I would say taste inspires me a whole lot in my life.
Yeah.
But in terms of, in terms of music, it's tough. I mean, it's probably even between sight and sound or hearing. Yeah, it's tough.
I think sight for me, I feel like I'm a very visual like learner and visual thinker.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like visualize so much in my mind when I'm writing.
Yeah.
But also just in general, I would say smell. I feel like smell is something that like is such a visceral, like you can get a memory of something so suddenly.
Totally.
That can be like really inspiring too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everyone, I think it's time to wrap this up.
10:59.
It has been such a joy talking to you all about this, and it's been such a joy to teach this with Quinn. Quinn, I love you. You're so amazing.
I love you too. Thank you for having me. So proud of you,
of course.
Thank you.
And to all of you watching and listening, I love you, and thank you for coming to support and for learning and being open to listening to both of us talk about something that we love. So to all the campers, I love you. Enjoy the rest of the day. Learn a lot. And if anybody has any more questions about this, just reach out to us individually.
Yeah.
Something we love to talk about. So we love you all, and we will talk to you soon.
Yay. Bye.